Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked his watch. The alien ship would dock with their station in 30 minutes. He had been a space captain for 15 years, but meeting a new alien race still made him nervous. "Lisa, are you ready with the translation system?" he asked the young woman sitting at the communication desk. Lisa Park nodded and adjusted her headset. "All set, Captain. The computer has been learning their language for 3 weeks. It should work fine." Danny Walsh, the big security chief, walked into the room carrying his weapon. "Captain, my team is ready. But remember, we don't know if these aliens are friendly. They asked for a peaceful meeting," Jake said. "Let's give them a chance." Dr. Amy Stone hurried in with her medical bag. She was the ship's doctor and scientist. "I've studied all the data we have about them. The Zephyrians seem to eat very simple food. No spices, no strong flavors. Just basic nutrients." Tony Reed, who handled cultural exchanges, was setting up the dining area. He had prepared a selection of Earth foods to share with their guests. There were fruits, vegetables, bread, and some basic meat dishes. But Tony had also brought something special from his home state of Louisiana. "Captain, I brought some of my grandmother's hot sauce," Tony said, holding up a small red bottle. "It's made from ghost peppers. Should I put it out with the other?" "Food?" Jake shrugged. "Sure, but label it clearly. We don't want any accidents." The Zephyrian ship was huge and made of some kind of silver metal that seemed to change color in the light. When it docked, the whole station shook slightly. Jake and his team waited in the main meeting room. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 3 tall figures walked through. The Zephyrians were almost 7 feet tall and covered in scales that looked like crystals. Their skin was pale blue and seemed to glow softly. They had 4 arms and large black eyes. The leader stepped forward. "I am Veltar Nijon, ambassador of the Zephyrian Republic. We come in peace to meet the humans." Lisa's translation system worked perfectly. The alien's words came through clearly in English. "Welcome," Jake said with a smile. "I am Captain Jake Morrison. We are honored to meet you." The 3 aliens looked around the room with wonder. They had never seen human technology before, just as the humans had never seen theirs. "We have prepared food to share," Jake said. "It is our custom to eat together when we meet new friends." Veltar's large eyes seemed to brighten. "This is also our custom. We are grateful." Tony led them to the dining area. The table was covered with different dishes from Earth. The aliens examined everything with great interest. "This is bread," Amy explained, pointing to a loaf. "And this is fruit from our home planet." Veltar carefully tasted a small piece of apple. "It is sweet, very different from our food." The other 2 aliens, who were introduced as Kefron and Zilmoth, also tried various items. They seemed to like everything, though they ate very small amounts. "Our stomachs are not used to such strong flavors," Veltar explained. "On our world, we eat mostly processed nutrients. They have no taste." Tony watched as the aliens tried different foods. He noticed they seemed curious about everything. That's when he remembered the hot sauce. "Would you like to try this?" Tony asked, pointing to a small bowl of red sauce next to some bread. "It's a sauce we use to add flavor to food." The bottle's label clearly said, "Extreme hot ghost pepper. Sauce warning. Use sparingly." But the aliens couldn't read English writing. Veltar looked at the innocent-looking red liquid. It didn't smell dangerous. In fact, it had a pleasant aroma. "How much should I try?" Veltar asked. Tony was about to say, "Just a tiny drop," when his communication device beeped. He turned away to answer it, thinking Veltar would be careful. But Veltar didn't understand about hot sauce. On his world, if something was safe to eat, you could eat as much as you wanted. He dipped a piece of bread into the sauce, coating it generously, and took a large bite. For a moment, nothing happened. Veltar chewed thoughtfully. Then his expression changed. His crystal scales began to glow brighter. The soft blue light became a brilliant white. His forearms started to shake. His large black eyes went completely wide. "Veltar?" Kefron asked in alarm, but Veltar didn't answer. He stood up slowly, his scales now shifting through colors that humans had never seen before. Red, gold, silver, and something that looked like liquid starlight. "Doctor!" Jake shouted. Amy rushed over with her medical scanner. But when she tried to examine Veltar, he didn't seem to notice her. He was staring straight ahead, perfectly still except for the amazing light show his scales were creating. The other two aliens began speaking rapidly in their own language. Lisa's translator couldn't keep up with their panicked words. "What's happening to him?" Danny asked, his hand moving toward his weapon. "I don't know," Amy said, checking her scanner readings. "His heart rate is elevated, but he doesn't seem to be in pain. His brain activity is ... incredible. I've never seen patterns like this." Jake grabbed Tony's arm. "What did you give him?" Tony held up the bottle with shaking hands. "Just hot sauce. Ghost pepper sauce. It's spicy, but it shouldn't hurt anyone." "How spicy?" Amy demanded. "Well, it's pretty hot. About 1,000,000 Scoville units." Amy stared at him. 1,000,000? And he ate how much? "I don't know. I wasn't watching. Maybe a tablespoon?" Jake felt his stomach drop. A tablespoon of ghost pepper sauce would be painful for a human. For an alien who had never tasted anything stronger than water, it might be deadly. But Veltar wasn't acting like he was dying. He was standing perfectly straight, his scales continuing their light show. His breathing was deep and steady. Almost like he was meditating. The other aliens were getting more upset. Kefron was speaking into a communication device, probably calling their ship. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Veltar never moved. The humans took turns watching him and running medical scans. Everything showed that he was physically fine, just in some kind of trance. Jake was starting to think they would need to call for medical evacuation, when Veltar suddenly blinked. The amazing colors faded from his scales. He looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time. Then he looked directly at Jake. "Captain Morrison," Veltar said softly. "What was that substance?" "Hot sauce," Jake said carefully. "Are you okay? Do you need medical help?" Veltar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with something that sounded like wonder. "I have experienced the burning enlightenment," he said, "the sacred fire that opens the mind. For 3 hours, I saw the connection between all things. I understood truths that I had never imagined." The other aliens stared at their ambassador, in shock. "Veltar?" Kefron said slowly. "Are you ... yourself?" "I am more myself than I have ever been," Veltar replied. He turned to Tony with something that might have been a smile. "This hot sauce, it is a gift from the universe. A key to higher understanding." Tony looked confused. "It's just peppers and vinegar." "No," Veltar said firmly. "It is much more. Captain Morrison, I must ask you a great favor. May we trade for more of this sacred substance?" Jake exchanged glances with his crew. Amy shrugged, indicating that Veltar seemed healthy. Lisa looked fascinated by the whole situation. Danny still looked worried. "I suppose we could arrange some trade," Jake said slowly. "But maybe you should start with smaller amounts." Veltar's scales glowed softly again. "Yes, we must be careful with such powerful medicine. But Captain, you must understand, this changes everything. My people have searched for spiritual enlightenment for thousands of years, and you have had it in a bottle all along. As the Zephyrians prepared to leave, Veltar carefully carried a small container of hot sauce, like it was made of precious gems. "We will return soon," he promised. "There are others who must experience the burning truth." After they left, Jake sat in his captain's chair and shook his head. "Well," he said to his crew, "that was unexpected." None of them realized that they had just started the biggest religious movement in galactic history. 6 months later, Lieutenant Ben Carter was having the strangest day of his military career. He stood at the observation window of Border Station Gamma, watching the 5th Zephyrian ship of the week approach the docking bay. "Sir, they're requesting permission to trade," his communications officer reported. "What do they want to trade for?" Ben asked, though he already knew the answer. "Hot sauce, sir. They're offering 3 containers of processed titanium for 1 bottle of human hot sauce." Ben shook his head. 3 containers of titanium were worth more than his yearly salary. All for a bottle of spicy liquid that cost $5 back on Earth. "Permission granted," he said, "but scan them first. Make sure they're not carrying weapons." The Zephyrians who came aboard looked different from the ones he'd met before. Their scales seemed brighter, and they moved with a strange kind of calm. Energy. They wore simple robes instead of the complex uniforms that Zephyrian officials usually wore. "We seek the sacred fire," their leader said through the translator. "We have heard that humans at this station possess the burning truth." "You mean hot sauce?" Ben asked. The alien scales glowed softly. "We call it by its true name, the substance that opens the mind to the universe." Ben had only a few bottles of Tabasco sauce in the station's kitchen. The aliens examined them, like they were ancient artifacts. "This is not as strong as the ghost pepper variety," the Zephyrian said sadly. "But it will serve until we can find the pure essence." They completed the trade quickly and left. But Ben noticed they didn't head back toward Zephyrian space. Instead, they set course for the inner systems, where more humans lived. Meanwhile, on the farming planet of New Texas, Pete Johnson was dealing with his own alien problem. The 60-year-old farmer had been growing hot peppers for 20 years. It was a small business that barely paid the bills. Now he couldn't keep up with demand. "Dad, there's another ship landing." His daughter Katie called from the farmhouse. Pete looked up from his pepper plants to see a sleek alien vessel settling down in his back field. It was the 3rd one this week. A group of tall, blue-scaled beings emerged from the ship. Pete recognized them as Zephyrians, though these ones wore simple white robes and moved very slowly, like they were walking through a holy place. "Human Pete Johnson," their leader said in careful English. "We have traveled far to reach the source of the sacred burn." "You mean my habanero sauce?" Pete asked. "We call it the liquid enlightenment," the alien replied. "Our brother Veltar the First Enlightened has told us of its power. We offer you great wealth for even a small amount." Pete looked at the small bottles of sauce cooling on his kitchen table. He'd made them using his grandmother's recipe, just habaneros, vinegar, and a little salt. "How much do you want?" he asked. "All that you can make," the alien said. "We will pay any price." By the end of the day, Pete had sold his entire month's production for enough money to buy a new farm. But he was worried. The aliens treated his simple hot sauce like it was some kind of drug. "Katie," he said to his daughter, "I think we need to be careful here. These aliens are acting strange." Katie, who was studying alien cultures at the local university, nodded. "I've been reading about this, Dad. The Zephyrians have never had spicy food before. Their whole culture is based on bland, simple things. This hot sauce is like, I don't know, like giving sugar to someone who's never tasted anything sweet." At the Kepler Research Station, Dr. Amy Stone was trying to understand exactly what was happening. She had been studying the Zephyrian brain scans that Veltar had allowed her to take during his enlightenment experience. "Sam, look at this," she said to her colleague. Linguist Sam Rogers. Sam leaned over her shoulder to look at the computer screen. "What am I looking at?" "Brain activity patterns from a Zephyrian under the influence of capsaicin. That's the chemical that makes peppers hot. See these neural pathways lighting up? They're areas of the brain that humans use for creative thinking and spiritual experiences. And this is different from normal Zephyrian brain activity? Completely different. Normally, Zephyrian brains are very organized, very logical. But capsaicin seems to create new connections between different parts of their minds. It's like it unlocks parts of their consciousness that they never knew existed." Sam whistled softly. "No wonder they think it's religious." Amy pulled up another screen showing intercepted Zephyrian communications. "Sam, I need you to translate these messages. They're coming from all over Zephyrian space." Sam worked for several hours, decoding the alien language. When he finished, his face was pale. "Amy, we have a problem. These messages are talking about something called the Order of the Burning Truth. It sounds like Veltar has started some kind of religious group based on hot sauce." "What kind of religious group?" "A kind that's spreading across their entire civilization. According to these communications, thousands of Zephyrians are leaving their jobs and families to join communes where they meditate and consume small amounts of hot sauce." Amy felt a chill run down her spine. "Show me the rest." The messages painted a picture of a civilization in chaos. Zephyrian colonies were reporting mass migrations as people left to join the growing religious movement. Traditional Zephyrian leaders were calling for help, saying their people were abandoning centuries of cultural practices. One message was particularly disturbing. It came from High Counselor Zixthan Curao, the leader of the Zephyrian government. "The human substance has infected our people with madness. They speak of enlightenment, but they abandon their duties. Our economy suffers as workers leave their posts to seek the burning truth. We do not know how to stop this spiritual plague." Amy immediately sent a message to Captain Morrison, who was now back on Earth, reporting to Fleet Command. Jake Morrison sat in Admiral Grace Phillips' office, reading Amy's report with growing concern. "Admiral, we have a serious situation," he said. Admiral Phillips, a stern woman in her 50s, leaned back in her chair. "Explain." "6 months ago, we accidentally introduced an alien species to hot sauce. Now it appears we've started some kind of religious revolution in their society." "Religious revolution?" "The Zephyrians are treating capsaicin, a chemical in hot peppers, like a spiritual sacrament. Thousands of them are joining religious communes. Their government is in crisis." Admiral Phillips was quiet for a long moment. "What are they asking us to do?" "Nothing yet. But if their civilization collapses, it could destabilize this entire sector of space. The Zephyrians control important trade routes." Before Admiral Phillips could respond, her communication device chimed with an urgent message. She read it quickly, and her expression darkened. "Captain Morrison, we have a bigger problem. The Cortharian Empire has just declared hot sauce a dangerous drug. They're demanding that we stop all trade with the Zephyrians immediately." Jake felt his stomach sink. The Cortharians were the Zephyrians' oldest enemies. If they thought the Zephyrians were weakened by their new religion, they might attack. "There's more," Admiral Phillips continued. "Our intelligence reports say the Cortharians are mobilizing their fleet. They think this is their chance to defeat the Zephyrian Republic once and for all." Back on New Texas, Pete Johnson was loading another shipment of hot sauce when his daughter Katie ran out of the house. "Dad, you need to see the news," she said. Breathlessly, they hurried inside and turned on the interstellar news broadcast. The reporter's voice was grave. "Tensions are rising throughout the sector as the so-called hot sauce crisis continues to spread. Zephyrian colonies report massive social upheaval as citizens abandon traditional life to join religious communes centered around human spicy foods. Meanwhile, the Cortharian Empire has declared these foods illegal substances and is threatening military action against anyone who trades them. Pete sat down heavily in his chair. Katie, what have we done? But it was too late to stop what had begun. Across the galaxy, more and more aliens were discovering the effects of capsaicin on their unique biologies. The silicon-based Christians reported that hot sauce made them experience time differently. The gaseous nebulans claimed it allowed them to communicate with cosmic forces. Each species interpreted the experience through their own cultural understanding, but the result was the same. Hot sauce was becoming the foundation of a new kind of interstellar religion. At Border Station Gamma, Lieutenant Ben Carter watched as another convoy of alien ships approached. But these weren't Zephyrians. The sleek black vessels belonged to the Cortharian Empire. "Sir, incoming transmission," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." A harsh alien voice filled the command center. "Human station, this is War Commander Thek Val of the Cortharian Fleet. We demand you cease all trade in the illegal substance you call hot sauce. Any ship found carrying this material will be destroyed." Ben looked out at the approaching Cortharian warships, then at the Zephyrian trading vessel that was still docked at his station. "This is about to get very complicated," he muttered. He was right. The hot sauce war was about to begin. War Commander Thek Val of the Cortharian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the human space station through the view screen. His red eyes glowed with anger as he watched Zephyrian ships dock peacefully with the humans. "Sir, the human commander is requesting to speak with you," his communications officer reported. "Put him through." Lieutenant Ben Carter's face appeared on the screen. The young human looked nervous but determined. "War Commander, this is a neutral station. You have no authority here." "I have the authority of the Cortharian Empire," Vic Val replied, his voice like grinding metal. "The substance you trade is destroying our enemies. We will not allow this weapon to spread." "Weapon? It's just food seasoning." "Do not lie to me, human. We have seen what your hot sauce does to the Zephyrians. It turns them into mindless fanatics. If this spreads to other species, it could destroy galactic civilization." Ben tried to stay calm. "The Zephyrians are peaceful. They're not hurting anyone. They are weak." Dekfall snarled. "And weakness spreads like a disease. End this trade. Now or we will end it for you." The transmission cut off. Ben immediately sent an emergency message to Earth Fleet Command. Meanwhile, on the research station Kepler Base, Dr. Amy Stone was making disturbing discoveries. She had convinced several different alien species to let her study the effects of capsaicin on their biology. The results were frightening. "Sam, come look at this," she called to linguist Sam Rogers. Sam hurried over to her laboratory station. "What did you find?" "I tested small amounts of hot sauce on tissue samples from 12 different species. Look at these results." The screen showed brain activity patterns from various aliens under the influence of capsaicin. Each species reacted differently, but they all showed the same basic pattern: traumatic changes in consciousness. The Christians experience what they call hindsight. They can perceive past and future events during the experience. The Nebulans say they can communicate with stellar radiation. Even the normally aggressive Cortharians become peaceful and contemplative. "That explains why they're so afraid of it," Sam said. "If hot sauce makes Cortharian warriors peaceful, their whole culture would collapse." Amy pulled up another screen. "But here's the really scary part. I've been monitoring communications from across the galaxy. It's not just the Zephyrians anymore. Dozens of species are starting their own versions of the hot sauce religion." The screen showed intercepted messages. from various alien worlds. Each species had given the phenomenon their own name: the burning enlightenment, the fire of truth, the sacred heat, the cosmic flame. "Amy, this is spreading faster than any religion in galactic history," Sam said quietly, "and it's causing political chaos everywhere. Traditional governments are losing control as their populations become obsessed with achieving these altered states of consciousness." On the human colony world of Spice World, entrepreneur Carlos Martinez was dealing with his own crisis. His planet had originally been settled to grow exotic spices for Earth restaurants. Now it had become the most important world in the galaxy. "Maria, how many ships are in orbit?" he asked his assistant, Maria Santos. 47 at last count," Maria replied, looking stressed. "And more arriving every hour. We have Zephyrians, Crystans, Nebulans, even some Cortharian defectors. They all want to visit what they're calling the Sacred Garden." Carlos looked out his office window at the pepper fields that covered most of the planet. Thousands of aliens wandered through the rows of plants, treating them like religious shrines. Many were meditating. Some were chanting in their native languages. "This is getting out of hand," he said. "We don't have enough housing for all these pilgrims. We don't have enough food or water." "Sir, there's something else," Maria said hesitantly. "We're getting reports of fighting between different groups. The Zephyrian purists don't want other species diluting their hot sauce. They're calling themselves the Pure Flame, and they're becoming violent." As if to prove her point, shouting erupted from outside. Carlos and Maria ran to the window to see two groups of aliens facing each other in the pepper fields. One group wore the simple white robes of Zephyrian converts. The other group was mixed species, wearing colorful clothing from many different worlds. "The sacred burn must remain pure," shouted the leader of the Zephyrians, a tall alien whose scales glowed bright red with anger. "These outsiders contaminate the truth with their inferior understanding. The cosmic flame belongs to all consciousness," replied a Crystan, its silicon body sparkling in the sunlight. "No single species can claim ownership of enlightenment." The argument quickly turned into a fight. Carlos grabbed his communication device and called for security, but he only had a dozen human guards to control thousands of alien pilgrims. Back on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison sat in an emergency meeting with the highest levels of human government. Admiral Grace Phillips was there, along with President Lisa Chun and several other officials. "The situation is spiraling out of control," Admiral Phillips reported. "We have religious wars breaking out across 3 star systems. The Cortharian Empire is mobilizing for a full military campaign, and our own colonies are being overwhelmed by alien pilgrims." President Chun, a calm woman in her 60s, looked tired. "What are our options?" "We could ban the export of all spicy foods," suggested Secretary of Defense Mike Thompson. "Cut off the supply, and maybe the problem will go away." "That would cause a galactic economic crash," warned Trade Minister Ana Rodriguez. "Hot sauce has become the most valuable commodity in known space. Entire civilizations are restructuring their economies around it." Jake spoke up. "There's another problem. The aliens who are already addicted to the experience won't just give up. If we cut off the legal supply, they'll find illegal ways to get it." Admiral Phillips nodded grimly. "Intelligence reports suggest that criminal organizations are already setting up black market hot sauce operations. If we ban it officially, we'll just be handing control to the criminals." "What about the Cortharians?" President Chun asked. "War Prime Vecmur Kazul has declared this a holy war," Admiral Phillips replied. "He's calling it Operation Cooling Wind. Their goal is to destroy every hot sauce production facility in human space and capture our pepper-growing worlds." Jake felt a chill. "How big is their fleet? Big enough to win if they catch us unprepared?" The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from General Alex Murphy on New Texas. Madam President, we have Cortharian ships entering our system. They're demanding that Farmer Pete Johnson surrender his hot sauce production facilities. President Chun closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her expression was determined. General Murphy, defend New Texas at all costs. Admiral Phillips, mobilize the fleet. We're going to war over hot sauce. On New Texas, Pete Johnson stood in his pepper fields, watching alien warships battle in the sky above his farm. Cortharian fighters screamed overhead, firing energy weapons at human defense platforms. In the distance, explosions lit up the horizon. Dad, we need to get to the shelter, his daughter Katie urged. In a minute, Pete said, still staring at the sky. Katie, do you realize that all of this started because I made hot sauce the same way my grandmother taught me? Dad, now is not the time for philosophy. We need to hide. But Pete wasn't moving. He was watching something incredible happen in the sky. A group of Zephyrian ships had arrived and were fighting alongside the human defenders against the Cortharians. Katie, look at that. The Zephyrians are helping us. Indeed. The crystal-scaled aliens who had started the whole crisis were now risking their lives to protect the humans who had given them their sacred substance. On the lead Zephyrian ship, Veltar Nijan, now known throughout the galaxy as the First, enlightened, spoke to his fellow believers. My brothers and sisters, the humans gave us the gift of burning truth. Now we must protect them from those who would destroy enlightenment itself. The battle raged for hours. Cortharian ships were powerful, but they were fighting enemies who believed they were defending something holy. The Zephyrians fought with desperate courage, and even some Crystans and Nebulans joined the fight. But the real surprise came when a group of Cortharian ships broke away from their own fleet and began attacking their former allies. This is Sub-Commander Vortek of the Cortharian Liberation Fleet, came a transmission. We have tasted the sacred fire. We will not let our empire destroy the path to enlightenment. The Cortharian Civil War had begun. As the battle continued. In space, down on the surface, something else was happening. The different alien groups that had been fighting over hot sauce purity are now working together to defend the pepper farms from the Cortharian attack. Zephyrian purists fought alongside Crystan mystics. Nebulan philosophers coordinated with human farmers to hide the most valuable pepper seeds. Carlos Martinez, watching from Spice World, realized that the external threat was uniting the different religious factions. Maria, send a message to all the pilgrimage groups. Tell them that if they want to preserve the sacred burn, they need to work together. As the first day of the hot sauce war ended, the battle lines were clear. On one side stood the traditional powers who wanted to maintain the old order. On the other side was a strange alliance of humans and various alien converts who believed that hot sauce represented something larger than just food. It represented the possibility of transcendence itself. But the war was just beginning. War Prime Vecmar Kazul had committed only a small portion of his fleet to the initial attack. The real Cortharian armada was still coming, and in the depths of space, ancient forces were beginning to stir. The Archivists, keepers of Galactic law, had remained neutral in every conflict for 1,000 years. But the hot sauce phenomenon was unlike anything they had seen before. The first voice, leader of the mysterious Archivists, spoke to its council. The small mammals have created something that transcends species barriers. This changes the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. We can no longer remain neutral. The galaxy was about to learn that some wars are about more than territory or resources. Some wars are about the very nature of what it means to be alive and aware in an infinite universe. And sometimes, those wars start with something as simple as a bottle of hot sauce. War Prime, Dekmur Kazul stood in the command center of his massive battle station, studying the holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed Cortharian fleet positions. Blue dots marked human worlds. But most disturbing were the yellow dots, worlds where the hot sauce plague had taken hold. "Report," he commanded his intelligence officer. "Sir, the infection continues to spread. We now have confirmed cases of capsaicin addiction on 47 worlds across 12 star systems. Even some of our own colonies show signs of contamination." Dekmur's red eyes blazed with fury. "How did this happen?" "Black market traders, sir. They smuggle small amounts of the substance to curious aliens. Once a population is exposed, the addiction spreads rapidly. And our defector problem? Growing worse, sir. Sub-Commander Vortek has convinced 3 entire battle groups to join his rebellion. They call themselves the Liberation Fleet and claim they're fighting to free the galaxy from our oppressive traditions." Vecmar slammed his fist on the control panel. "Ready Operation Cooling Wind. We will destroy the source of this madness once and for all." Meanwhile, on New Texas, General Alex Murphy coordinated the defense of humanity's most important agricultural world. The first Cortharian assault had been repelled, but everyone knew it was just a probe. The real attack was coming. "Sir, we have Zephyrian reinforcements arriving," reported his aide, Lieutenant Jenny Walsh. Alex looked up at the tactical display. "How many ships?" 50 vessels, sir. But these aren't military ships. They're converted cargo vessels and passenger liners. The crews are all volunteers from the Order of the Burning Truth." Alex shook his head. "Civilian volunteers flying cargo. Ships against the most powerful military in the galaxy. It should have been hopeless. But somehow, the Zephyrians had held their own in the first battle. Sir, there's something else. We're getting reports of similar volunteer fleets gathering at other human colonies. Kristans, Nebulans, even some rebel Cortharians. They're all coming to help defend the hot sauce production worlds." In the pepper fields below, Farmer Pete Johnson worked alongside his daughter Katie to harvest their crop before the next attack. But they weren't alone. Dozens of alien volunteers had stayed behind to help. "Mr. Johnson," said a tall Zephyrian whose scales glowed with inner light, "we have prepared underground storage chambers for your seeds. If the worst happens, the sacred plants will survive." Pete wiped sweat from his forehead. "I still can't believe all this started with my grandmother's recipe." A Kristan approached, its silicon body reflecting the sunlight. The recipe was merely the key, human Pete. The door it opened was always there, waiting. Katie looked up from the pepper plants she was carefully transplanting. "What do you mean?" "Your species creates substances that alter consciousness," the Kristan explained. "Alcohol, caffeine, capsaicin. You use them casually. But for other species, they reveal hidden aspects of existence." Meanwhile, engineer Rick Thompson worked frantically at the orbital supply depot above New Texas. His job was to maintain the supply lines that kept hot sauce moving to alien worlds where the new religion was taking hold. "Rick, we have a problem," called his assistant, Lieutenant Amy Taylor. Cortharian raiders hit the convoy to the Andromeda sector. 3 ships destroyed, 2 captured. Rick cursed under his breath. How many bottles were we carrying? 2,000 cases of various hot sauces. That's enough to supply the believers on 12 worlds for a month. And now the Cortharians have it? Worse, intelligence reports suggest they're going to use it as a weapon. Rick didn't understand what that meant until the reports started coming in. The Cortharians had begun forcing captured hot sauce down the throats of their own prisoners. The goal was to cause permanent psychological damage by creating forced enlightened experiences. Dr. Amy Stone, working from her research station, was horrified when she analyzed the data. "They're torturing people with enlightenment," she told Sam Rogers. The Cortharians are using massive doses of capsaicin to break the minds of captured rebels. That's horrible, Sam replied. The religious experience is supposed to be voluntary, meditative. It gets worse. They're also using it on their own population, forcing soldiers to consume hot sauce to make them more aggressive during the experience instead of peaceful. Amy's research had shown that the effects of capsaicin could be controlled, somewhat by the subject's mental state going into the experience. A calm, meditative mindset led to spiritual insights. Fear and anger led to violent hallucinations. The war was changing the very nature of the hot sauce phenomenon. On the neutral world of Harmony Station, an emergency meeting was taking place. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to try to find a peaceful solution to the growing conflict. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, led the human delegation. Across the table sat Veltar Nijan, representing the religious converts, and War Commander Grelhan Morduk of the Cortharian military. "We must find a compromise," Jake said. "This war is tearing the galaxy apart. There can be no compromise." "With madness," Grelhan replied coldly. "The substance you humans created destroys civilizations. It must be eliminated." Veltar's scales glowed softly as he spoke. "The burning truth cannot be eliminated, only suppressed. And suppression leads only to greater suffering." The negotiations seemed hopeless until an unexpected voice interrupted them. "The archivists will now speak." Everyone in the room fell silent. The archivists had not interfered in galactic politics for over 1,000 years. They were the keepers of ancient knowledge, older than any current civilization. A shimmering figure materialized in the center of the room. It was impossible to tell what species the first voice had originally been, if it had ever been any species at all. "The substance you call hot sauce has created something unprecedented," the first voice said. "For the first time in galactic history, a single experience can bridge the consciousness gap between different species." Jake leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "Each species experiences reality differently because of biological differences in brain structure. Humans see time linearly. Kristans perceive multiple timelines simultaneously. Zephyrians process information in discrete logical steps. These differences have always made true understanding between species impossible." The first voice gestured, and holographic images appeared showing brain scans from different aliens under the influence of capsaicin. "But this substance temporarily alters brain chemistry in ways that create similar consciousness patterns across species. A human and a Zephyrian experiencing capsaicin effects can literally think in similar ways for the first time." Veltar's eyes widened. "That's why the Enlightenment feels so profound. We're not just having spiritual experiences. We're learning how other species think." "Exactly. But this gift comes with responsibility. The substance must be regulated, not banned. Used wisely, it could create the first truly integrated galactic civilization." War Commander Grelhan stood up angrily. "The Cortharian Empire will never accept drug-induced unity." "Then the Cortharian Empire will fall," the first voice replied calmly. "This change cannot be stopped. You can be part of creating a new order, or you can be destroyed by your refusal to adapt." The meeting ended without resolution, but the first voice's words had planted seeds of doubt in many minds. Back in space, the real war was intensifying. War Prime Vecmer had launched his full assault on the human colonies. Massive Cortharian battleships bore down on worlds where hot peppers grew, but the resistance was stronger than expected. The volunteer fleets of religious converts fought with desperate courage. More importantly, they had learned to work together in ways that military forces never could. Admiral Jake Morrison coordinated the defense from his flagship, the UES Liberty. His tactical officer was Kelly Anderson, a young intelligence specialist who had uncovered something important. Admiral, I've been analyzing Cortharian battle patterns. There's something strange going on. What do you mean? Some of their ships are fighting less effectively than they should. It's like the crews are conflicted about their orders. Jake studied the battle displays. Kelly was right. Several Cortharian vessels seemed to be holding back, not firing when. They had clear shots at human ships. Sir, incoming transmission from a Cortharian vessel, the communications officer reported. Put it through. The screen showed a Cortharian officer whose red eyes seemed troubled. Human Admiral, this is Captain Morthick of the battleship Vengeance. I must speak with you. I'm listening. My crew has been discussing the war. Many of us have begun to question whether we are fighting for the right cause. The substance. Your people create ... that does not seem evil. Our prisoners who have experienced it speak of peace and understanding. Jake felt a spark of hope. Captain, what are you suggesting? I am suggesting that perhaps the war prime is wrong. Perhaps change is not always something to be feared. Before the conversation could continue, alarms sounded throughout both ships. The First Voice's ancient vessel had appeared between the two fleets. All ships will cease fire immediately, the First Voice commanded, its message broadcast on all frequencies. The archivists invoke the ancient protocols. This conflict will be resolved through formal mediation, not warfare. War Prime Vecmer's furious voice crackled over the communications. The archivists have no authority over the Cortharian Empire. The archivists have authority over the galaxy itself, the First Voice replied. You will attend mediation at Harmony Station, or you will be declared enemies of galactic law. The threat was real. The archivists commanded technologies that no current civilization could match. Their intervention could end the war, or escalate it beyond imagination, not as. The fleets reluctantly withdrew. Jake realized that the real battle was just beginning. The next fight wouldn't be won with weapons, but with words and ideas. The fate of galactic civilization would be decided not by who had the strongest ships, but by who could create the most compelling vision of the future. And at the center of it all was a simple bottle of hot sauce that had somehow become the key to understanding what it meant to be conscious in an infinite universe. The Grand Council of Harmony Station was the largest gathering of intelligent beings in galactic history. Representatives from over 200 species filled the massive conference hall, while millions more watched through holographic broadcasts across known space. Admiral Jake Morrison sat at the human delegation table, flanked by President Lisa Chun and Dr. Amy Stone. Across the hall, War Prime Vecmer Kazul led the Cortharian delegation, his red eyes burning with barely controlled anger. Between them sat dozens of other species, from the crystal-scaled Zephyrians to the gaseous Nebulans to species that humans had never encountered before. At the center of it all, the First Voice of the archivists waited patiently for the proceedings. To begin, this council will determine the future of capsaicin use throughout the galaxy, the First Voice announced. All species will be heard, all concerns will be addressed, and a solution will be found. War Prime Vecmer stood first. The Cortharian Empire demands a complete ban on the substance humans call hot sauce. It is a drug that destroys civilizations and turns rational beings into fanatics. Murmurs of disagreement rippled through the hall. Veltar Nijan, now recognized as the leader of the galactic hot sauce religion, rose to respond. The burning truth cannot be banned, Veltar said, his scales glowing softly. It is not a drug but a key to understanding. Those who have experienced it know that it opens minds rather than destroying them. Look around you, Vecmer shouted. Your enlightenment has caused wars, destroyed economies, and torn families apart. Entire worlds have abandoned their responsibilities to chase drug-induced visions. Dr. Amy Stone requested permission to speak. If I may, I've studied the effects of capsaicin on 47 different species. The substance does alter consciousness, but the effects depend entirely on how it's used and in what context. She activated a holographic display showing her research data. When consumed in controlled amounts during meditative practices, capsaicin enhances creativity, empathy, and cross-species understanding. When forced on unwilling subjects or used in massive doses, it can cause psychological trauma. The problem isn't the substance itself, Amy continued. It's the lack of regulation and education about its proper use. A new voice spoke from the Kristen delegation. Quartzoval 9 Angles, their leading scientist, addressed the council. We have observed that capsaicin allows our species to perceive time in ways similar to how humans experience it. This has led to breakthrough discoveries in temporal physics. The substance has scientific value beyond its spiritual applications. Similar testimonies came from other species. The Nebulans reported that hot sauce helped them communicate more effectively with solid matter beings. The Aquarians found that it enhanced their ability to navigate hyperspace. Even some Cortharians admitted privately that the experience had given them insights into their own aggressive nature, but the testimonies also revealed problems. On some worlds, hot sauce cults had formed that rejected all technology and traditional medicine. Criminal organizations were selling dangerously concentrated versions of the substance. Several species reported addiction-like behaviors in some individuals. President Lisa Chun stood to address the council. Earth proposes the creation of an interspecies capsaicin authority. This organization would regulate production, ensure quality control, and provide education about safe usage. Who would control this authority? Demanded a representative from the Rigel Confederation. No single species, President Chun replied. It would be jointly governed by representatives from all interested civilizations. War Prime Vecmer scoffed. The Cortharian Empire will never accept drug dealers governing galactic policy. Then perhaps, said a quiet voice, the Cortharian Empire needs new leadership. Everyone turned to see Sub-Commander Vartek, the Cortharian rebel leader, enter the hall with a small group of followers. You have no authority here, traitor, Vecmer snarled. I have the authority of half your fleet, Vartek replied calmly. While you have been here arguing, Captain Morthic and 30 other ship commanders have declared their support for peaceful resolution of this crisis. The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. A Cortharian civil war had been brewing, but no one expected it to come to a head during the peace talks. Vartek continued. Many Cortharians have secretly tried the human substance. We have learned that our aggression, which we thought was natural, is actually a choice. The burning truth has shown us that we can be more than warriors. Vecmer's face turned even redder with rage. You have poisoned my people with human lies. I have shown them human truth, Vartek replied. And now they choose for themselves. The first voice intervened before violence could erupt. A council will recess while the Cortharian delegation resolves its internal dispute. During the recess, Jake Morrison met privately with several key representatives, including Veltar, Dr. Amy Stone, and surprisingly, Vartek. We need a compromise that everyone can accept, Jake said. Complete prohibition won't work. The demand is too high. But unlimited access is causing social problems. Dr. Stone had an idea. What if we create designated sanctuaries? Places where beings can safely experience capsaicin effects under proper supervision, like temples or medical facilities. Veltar's scales brightened. Pilgrimage sites. Places where the burning truth can be experienced as it was meant to be, in peace and contemplation. The Cortharians would never accept religious sites, Vartek pointed out, but they might accept medical facilities if the substance is classified as a therapeutic agent rather than a recreational drug. They worked through the night, crafting a proposal that might satisfy all parties. The key was framing capsaicin not as a recreational substance or a religious sacrament, but as a tool for cross-species understanding and scientific research. The council reconvened. The Cortharian delegation had changed. War Prime Vecmar still led it, but half of his supporters had defected to Vertex faction. The Empire was clearly divided. Jake Morrison presented the compromise proposal. The Galactic Capsaicin Accords would establish 3 types of facilities across known space. Research stations would study the substance's effects and develop new applications. Medical centers would provide therapeutic treatments for various psychological conditions. And cultural exchange centers would allow controlled experiences for beings seeking greater understanding of other species. The proposal included strict regulations. All facilities would be jointly operated by multiple species. Usage would be voluntary and supervised. Production would be limited to prevent black market activity. And most importantly, no military applications would be permitted. The debate that followed lasted for days. Some species wanted complete freedom. Others wanted total prohibition. But gradually, a consensus emerged around the compromise. The turning point came when the first voice revealed something that shocked everyone. The archivists have used similar consciousness-altering substances for millennia, the ancient being announced. How do you think we learn to transcend our original species' limitations? The path to higher consciousness often requires tools to break down the barriers that biology creates. This revelation changed everything. If the most advanced civilization in the galaxy had used consciousness-altering substances to evolve beyond their original nature, then perhaps the hot sauce phenomenon was not an aberration, but a natural step in galactic development. The final vote was closer than expected. The Galactic Capsaicin Accords passed by a narrow margin, with several species abstaining and the remaining Cortharian hardliners voting against it. But it was enough. The framework for a new galactic order had been established. 1 year later, Jake Morrison stood in the central plaza of the first Interspecies Understanding Center on Harmony Station. The facility was beautiful, combining architectural elements from dozens of different civilizations. Beings from across the galaxy came here to safely experience capsaicin in controlled settings. Designed to promote peace and understanding, former farmer Pete Johnson had been appointed as the first human director of the Interspecies Spice Authority. His daughter Katie now ran a university program studying cross-species consciousness research. Admiral Morrison called a familiar voice. Jake turned to see Veltar approaching, accompanied by a young Cortharian whose scales had been modified to resemble Zephyrian crystal patterns. "This is Karthik," Veltar said. "She is the first Cortharian to officially join the Order of the Burning Truth." Jake shook the young alien's hand. "How do your people feel about that?" "Many are curious," Karthik replied in careful English. "The Civil War ended when Sub-Commander Vertek became our new leader. He has declared that all Cortharians should have the freedom to choose their own path to understanding." "And War Prime Vecmar?" "He retreated to the Outer Rim with his remaining followers. But even there, we hear reports that some of his warriors are secretly seeking out the burning truth." Jake smiled. "Change was never easy, but it was unstoppable once it began. Dr. Amy Stone approached with her latest research report. "Jake, you need to see this. We've discovered that regular, controlled capsaicin experiences are creating permanent changes in brain structure across multiple species. Beings who participate in the programs show increased empathy, better problem-solving skills, and enhanced ability to communicate across species barriers. So it's not just a temporary high?" "Not at all. It's literally evolving how different species think and interact. We might be witnessing the birth of the first truly integrated galactic civilization." As the sun set over Harmony Station, Jake watched beings from dozens of different worlds working together, learning from each other and finding common ground despite their vast biological differences. 5 years ago, he had been a simple starship captain doing routine diplomatic missions. Now he was helping to oversee the transformation of galactic society, all because an alien had tasted hot sauce. The monument to the sacred burn was dedicated the following week. Veltar, now recognized as a galactic spiritual leader, spoke to representatives from every known species. The burning truth teaches us that consciousness is not limited by the body that contains it, he said. We are all part of the same cosmic fire, temporarily separated by the illusion of individual existence. The human gift of capsaicin simply reminds us of this connection. Jake looked out at the crowd of beings, humans, Cepharians, Cortharians, Crystans, Nebulans, and many others, all listening peacefully to words that would have started wars just a few years earlier. Katie Johnson, now a respected researcher in her own right, stood beside him. My father always said his grandmother's recipe was special. I don't think even she could have imagined it would change the galaxy. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from the most ordinary things. Jake replied. As the ceremony ended, Jake noticed young beings from different species playing together in the plaza, sharing snacks that included mild versions of spicy foods appropriate for their biology. They were growing up in a galaxy where diversity was celebrated rather than feared, where consciousness-expanding experiences were part of normal education, and where the barriers between species were dissolving. The age of the sacred burn had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the distance, a new ship was approaching Harmony Station. Its hull bore markings that no one recognized. It was from beyond the edge of known space, carrying representatives of species that had heard rumors of the great transformation happening in this sector of the galaxy. They too wanted to taste the burning truth. The expansion continued, one bottle of hot sauce at a time.